My next guest tonight is American free speech crusader who says governments around the world are making bold attempts to take away our civil liberties. Michael Shellenberger is in town for an event on Thursday night in London when himself, Russell Brand and Matt Taibbi will be exposing what they describe as censorship industrial complex as they launch the Global Free Speech Alliance. Welcome to the show, Michael. Thank you. Wow. An honour. Pleasure. You're here. So please tell us about this Free Speech Alliance.
Well, I think it's important for people to understand that what's been revealed in Britain has also been happening in the United States, which is government bureaucrats putting pressure on social media companies to censor disfavored voices, disfavored opinions, most dramatically around COVID. We saw Facebook and Twitter censoring what they themselves acknowledged were often true stories of vaccine side effects. And this is shocking for anybody, whether you're liberal or conservative. We spent a lot of effort over the years trying to require pharmaceutical companies to disclose the side effects of their drugs. So when you have ordinary people describing the side effects of vaccines, I think we should all agree that that should be permitted speech. But it gets much worse than that. We've seen the involvement of our intelligence services, our security forces, people that George Orwell warned us should not be involved in censoring speech. And we're seeing it in the United States, in Britain. The EU is making an attempt to censor speech. Maybe the worst is happening in Ireland, where the government wants the right to be able to go into your home and search your phones and computers without your permission and deem you guilty before being proven innocent. So there's Brazil, we see it. We see it all the English-speaking countries of the world starting to crack down on free speech. We felt like we needed to strike back, and that's why we're having this event on Thursday, 7 p.m., Central Hall, Westminster, here in London. I think we have so much in common, our two countries, and we want to bring us together on this.
Well, and look at that, it just instantly sold out like that.
Let's hope so.
I'm sure. But I think it's interesting that this, and I should point out that I think it's a little bit more so in America, maybe, where this free speech seems to be like a right-left issue as such. But it's definitely these different discussions about COVID, about gender identity, about how our policing, they transcend left and right. Surely.
I mean, they should. I mean, the year I graduated from high school, 1989, our Supreme Court said that you had a right to burn the American flag. And it was mostly conservatives and Republicans who were opposed to that. As a boy growing up, my father would talk about how the ACLU, which is our main civil rights organization, fought for the right of neo-Nazis to be able to march through a predominantly not only Jewish neighborhood, but a neighborhood of Holocaust survivors. And that was allowed because America has such a muscular view of free speech. We made it our First Amendment to the Constitution. It was central to what it meant to be an American. And so to see the issue become polarized in this way, it's very sad, it's very troubling, it makes me upset. And so we definitely are trying to appeal to everybody, no matter where you sit on that left-right spectrum.
And how come you've come to the UK? I mean, is it a worse problem here, or do you think that the fight back is a little bit more developed here?
I mean, on the one hand, Britain is where we got our appreciation of freedom of speech.
You're welcome.
And now we're coming back, and we, of course, like many things in the United States, we took it to a new extreme, and we said, look, there's very few limitations that we put on free speech in the United States. You can't lie to commit fraud, and you can't incite violence against people using your speech. But beyond that, our Supreme Court has upheld very strong free speech rights. And our view is that instead of the pressure that is being put on social media companies, based mostly in the United States, from Europe, from Britain, from countries around the world, for us to water down our own free speech rights, we think other countries should strengthen their commitment to free speech. We think other countries, and we want to help that happen because we don't want to be on the defensive. This week is about us going on the offensive and strengthening free speech, because we think when citizens around the world have a chance to have stronger or weaker free speech laws, they're going to choose stronger laws.
And how did you, well, here's a picture of the guys there. How did you hook up with Matt and Russell then?
I mean, Russell Brand's a huge character in the United States, and we really fell in love with him through the...
He's very demure here.
Yeah, sure. We all fell in love with Russell Brand over the last decade. Matt Taibbi, I also only recently met. Matt and I both came from the left. We find ourselves a little bewildered to be in this position of being interrogated by Democrats in Congress. Russell Brand is somebody that I don't share all of his views. He has views that I don't necessarily share on things like agriculture or nuclear power and various issues. But I think we all agree that, particularly when you've experienced censorship or when you watch him on his YouTube channel have to talk around the restrictions that they're now imposing, we see now YouTube is imposing even stronger restrictions, even cracking down on very famous people like Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro, others for using the wrong pronouns. So we're seeing a simultaneous crackdown around the world. It's affecting all of us. Even if you don't agree on other issues, I think this is something, freedom of speech is something that's traditionally united us. We recognize that we don't agree, but that we're better off being able to have the conversation rather than be in fear that the government's going to put us in prison for the things that we say and believe.
And arguably, it's not just the government. I mean, we are talking about social movements as well, and the virulence with which they attack anybody with a different opinion. Say, as you say, coming from the left, I'm sure you'll find that some of the most, egregious, really people taking it to the furthest possible way are people also from the left, where it enters into fascism, of course.
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is a very sad development over the last 20 years in particular. You know, we made these incredible achievements in terms of civil rights and women's rights and rights for gays and lesbians. And then it just went to this incredible extreme. And so the censorship industrial complex is sort of the inorganic government imposition, but it pulls its strength from cancel culture, from this really dogmatic woke culture. It's not to say it's entirely left-right. We've seen censorship of anti-war left-wing voices as well. There's a group of black radicals that are being prosecuted by the FBI in the United States for speaking out against the war in Ukraine. So again, it shouldn't break along left-right lines. That has tended to be where it's been, but really it's this desire from the grassroots. It's like the last segment you saw on Elizabeth Gilbert. The self-censorship and the cancel culture then has given power to these government agencies to tap into that and use it as an excuse to demand more censorship, including things that they mislabel hate speech that really aren't hateful at all.
So you mentioned social media a few times. It seems like that may be the problem and the solution. I mean, obviously you had Elon Musk buying Twitter. Has it made a big difference, do you think, him taking that, just even in the practical sense on Twitter, but also what he's standing up for?
A huge difference. I mean, the first thing that he did when he took over the company is he invited in several journalists. I was brought in through a friend who he had brought in to look in through the Twitter files. And what we discovered really shocked us. I mean, at first it was sort of this imposition of very dogmatic values, but over time we started to see people from the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security and even the CIA making requests for content moderation or censorship, often along lines that were designed to divide us. I mean, I think people have to remember, when you look at the sweep of history, we are more tolerant of racial, religious, and sexual minorities in Britain, the United States, the Western world than we've ever been. I mean, just think about your parents or grandparents 100 years ago, how much less tolerance there was. So to see the Secretary General of the United Nations or the President of the European Commission or other major figures get up there and say that we're suffering from this increase of hatred in the society, it's just false. And in fact, they're the ones that are stoking, I believe, this animus and this hatred of each other on ideological lines as a justification for expanding censorship.
Well, obviously, this is a huge topic. I mean, we've got a whole show dedicated to it, but good luck. Do you want to tell us one more time on Thursday? Just get out there for people who are interested, who want to hear more.
Absolutely. So it's Central Hall, Westminster, 7 p.m. If you can't afford a ticket, I'll personally pay for your ticket. We've got to get a strong show of force there.
Will you buy me a coffee as well?
Absolutely. We need a strong show of force. It's really, I think the alliance has to start with the United States and Britain, and I think the rest of the Western world, but also Brazil, so we can start to fight back and go on the offense for free speech.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming in and telling us about it, and good luck on Thursday. Very nice to meet you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Very keen.